around that type of language. So really what we recommend is using like subtle questions to direct people's thinking in a certain way, or use cultural references to paint a picture of what you're trying to say. The second recommendation we have is really show and tell, don't just tell. I think sometimes we feel as human beings we get like really bogged down in correcting the record on stuff. Like we see something, it's false, it bothers us, we gotta like get ahead of it. That doesn't always work. People told us in focus groups that they consume a lot of information from influencers and content creators, but that they don't really remember the people's names. They remember their behavior. And the type of behavior they appreciated were the people who were, for example, going up on a whiteboard and like drawing out the examples, or giving them numbers and expert quotes to back up their claims. So really show and tell. And then the last thing I would say is, politics is a tough thing, right? We actually found that the majority of Latinos who see and believe disinformation the most, they do it because they have really high levels of interest in politics. They're kind of conspiratorial to begin with, and they're consuming hyper-partisan news and content. They're choosing to consume super-partisan stuff. So it's not always about a lack of information, right? There are other drivers. And so what we recommend here is it really works well when we use fun things to illustrate points that we're making. So cultural references that draw a picture of what you're trying to say without necessarily using political examples. And I think people are really good at making that connection in their own heads. You don't have to like shove it down their throats. And so those are the three things I would highlight, but there are a bunch of others, and I'll make sure to share that with all of you if you're interested.
Thank you very much. I do want to take the time to say that we at GreenLatinos have reviewed the document as well, and we are working to launch a culturally relevant social media campaign in the upcoming weeks, where we took some of those points and implemented it into the campaign. So if you're not following our social media, please follow it, keep an eye on it. It's going to come out soon. But yes, it's very, very exciting, and I am very, very proud of it. So thank you. Okay, our next question goes to Ana Maria. Ana Maria. Factchequeado plays a crucial role in verifying misinformation within Spanish language communities. How do you see the role of fact-checking evolving in Latino media, especially as misinformation tactics become more sophisticated? What unique challenges do Spanish language fact-checkers face compared to their English language counterparts?
Well, first of all, we have to know that most of this information that circulates in English also circulates in Spanish. So Latinos are also victims of all the narrative that you see in English. And to understand the challenges, we need to understand the Latino community and their behavior. So, for instance, attention to news is declining among U.S. Latinos. That means that Latinos follows the news less closely than African Americans and white Americans. Also, many Latinos get informed only through social media. And among Latinos, young adults, that means younger than 30 years old, just 10% say they follow the news most of the time. So, and there are not enough moderators in Spanish. That means that with this landscape, Latinos are very, very vulnerable to mis and disinformation. So what we do as fact checkers in Factchequeado, we work a lot with pre-bunking, as Roberta said. We like to work with media literacy and offer the information because it circulates, that to work like vaccine against disinformation about processed food. And we also try to be on the platforms Latino use. So, for instance, we have identified that Latino use WhatsApp a lot, and we have developed a couple of products that are specifically in WhatsApp. So one is a chatbot to receive any disinformation, and people receive immediately. It's a conversational chatbot that just connect with all the content we have produced and respond immediately when people have questions about something, whether it's false or true. And if we haven't developed content about that, then our team receives that and we decide to fact check that. And also, we just launched WhatsApp, a chatbot WhatsApp, which is called Electoral, that is focused on electoral electoral information about the U.S. Election. So people, any question about the election, how to vote, and anything, they can ask through the WhatsApp and they can get the answers. So those are this is one of our strategies to get to Latino audiences in the platform they use. Also, we try to be cultural competent. That means that we try to talk with, in Spanish with several accents and using expressions Latino use. So we are not like a different, culturally different from our audience. And what we have seen regarding sophisticated tactics right now, we've seen paid advertising, which is very, we're very concerned about that because those paid advertising are using artificial intelligence or manipulated photos or information out of context, and those advertising is targeting swing states to manipulate the vote intention to Latinos. So, and they're using emotional language and trying to get to feel fear, so people don't vote using facts. They are trying to make people feeling in certain ways about certain candidates. So, and not to have informed decisions in the election. So this is something that worries a lot to us, and this is why we're working a lot in fact-checking and in pre-bunking techniques.
Thank you so much. The next question goes out to Antionieta. Climate Power in Acción focuses on reaching Latinos and mobilizing them for climate action. What have been some of the biggest challenges in breaking through the misinformation surrounding climate issues?
Well, we haven't named the candidates, but I will name the candidates now. And our main challenge right now is the disinformer-in-chief, I will call him, el desinformador en jefe, Donald Trump, who he has a big microphone and he uses it every day. And a lot of the disinformation he spreads is climate disinformation. He loves to talk about electric cars, for example, or clean energy. And we know what is happening behind that. We know that he had a meeting with big oil donors, and he basically said, you finance my campaign, and you can do whatever you want with the environmental policy of the United States. So it's pretty clear, the relation. It's pretty clear why he's doing that. And that is the main challenge, because let's recognize it. I would say half of the country believes in what he says, believes in the disinformation that he spreads. So it's dangerous. It was dangerous in COVID times when people were drinking Clorox. It's dangerous now. So I would say that's the main challenge. What gives me hope, though, we are having this conversation today. That's an important step. We need to talk more about this information. What gives me hope, Ana Maria's work, Roberta's work. We are here together. Latino media are working more on this information. We have my friend Isabel here from USA Today. She does fact-checking for USA Today. Factchequeado, El Detectora de Univision. They are all working to counter disinformation. That didn't happen 10 years ago. So that gives me hope. In Climate Power, also we're working, for example, on paid campaigns. We now have a paid campaign with Radio Campesina to counter disinformation targeting Latinos. That is really effective, working on radio. We are also working on disinformation with influencers. We will have a video soon with Benjamin Zamora, a very famous influencer, that will talk about disinformation, climate disinformation and disaster relief. So a lot of people are doing a lot to counter this. GreenLatinos, one of the organizations leading this work. So that gives me a lot of hope.
Thank you very much. also want to take the time to uplift a report that I saw earlier this year. It was a joint bicameral staff report, which, in speaking about big oil, revealed big oil's campaign on disinformation. So if you guys haven't seen it, it came out earlier in April, I believe. So it's definitely one that should be checked out as well. It has really good messaging and touches on some of the stuff that Antionieta said. The next question goes out to Roberta. In your opinion, how have social media platforms contributed to the spread of disinformation? What accountability should they bear, and what can be done to mitigate the influence of these platforms in spreading false narratives?
Thank you for the question, JP. I feel like this is the question the entire world is grappling with. And the companies are grappling with it too. So I think fundamentally the impact that social media companies have had is that they fundamentally ushered in a transformation in how we consume media information. Today, if we don't want to, we can choose never to be exposed to information that doesn't fit within our values and identities, for example. We can self-select into consuming just information that we like, and it's just completely disaggregated and decentralized our media and information ecosystem. For us, I think this was brought up a bit, but we know, for example, that Latino communities really over-index on consuming news and information on YouTube, for example. 41% of our communities in the US are consuming news and information on YouTube on a regular basis every week. Over 50% of Latinos in the US are on WhatsApp frequently for news and information. I think Nadia mentioned that, more than any other racial or ethnic group in the country. And essentially, I think what social media does is it amplifies not just divisions, it also leads us to overstate just how different we all are. And I think that has a real impact on trust, for example. So there's a study out of Stanford, I want to look it up, it was a few years ago, but that showed that people overestimate how much the other side is willing to engage in political violence by 300 to 400%. That's huge, and I feel like that has a huge role in the way that social media is constructed. Now, how can they kind of adapt to be a part of the solutions? Like, I think social media companies have tried a lot of different things, but at the end of the day, their business models are not conducive to solving for this problem. Their algorithms are going to amplify sensationalist content no matter what. And I feel like the incentives that are there for people to be creating and doing more and more short form stuff, which is not the greatest for if you're trying to kind of explain complex topics, right? That's the race we're up against, I feel like. But I think there are a few things that companies can be doing more. First is I think they need to go back to investing in trust and safety. So they have in past years, I think, de-escalated the amount of money they put into trust and safety professionals. These are the professionals and teams that are kind of looking at information integrity on the platform. It doesn't mean that they're removing content. I don't think that removing content necessarily tips the scale, right? But there are a lot of other ways that trust and safety teams can deal with false and misleading information online, including by, for example, making sure that it's not going as viral, like they can kind of tip down the scale on virality. The other thing I think they can do more of is they just need to really invest in our communities more so. So we are in conversations always with a lot of social media companies, and they say, well, we really can't identify a lot of disinformation and misinformation in Spanish, can you help us? Like, if our small organization can identify this, then your gigantic company should be able to do it at a greater scale even than what we do. And then I think Ana Maria brought this up, but really content moderation is a tough thing. I think no one wants to be the arbiter of truth, and more today, disinformation has become this thing where, like, rather than always being clear-cut true or false, the content is kind of a grain of truth that's very massively twisted or decontextualized, and it's hard to separate, right, the fact from the rest of the context. And so content moderators already have a hard time kind of defining what is and is not true or false. But the people that are working on that are not being invested in. I think there are not enough, what I would say, culturally competent content moderators that know our language in and out, know how it can manifest in different countries, know the dialects and the words we might use and the meanings behind some of the phrasing that we use. and who fundamentally just understand the diversity of our communities. And so I think more and more companies should be putting investment and resources into making sure that their teams are capable of understanding the nuances of Latino communities and all the information that we need.
Well said. Thank you so much. This is one of the priorities at GreenLatinos. We want to try making this a reality. So again, for those that are here and are interested, reach out.
Recording stopped.
Oh, sorry. Reach out to me, reach out to GreenLatinos so that we can think of solutions for this and make it a reality. The next question goes out to Ana Maria. During your time at El Electoral at Televisa Univision, you worked on fact-checking content for a major Latino audience. What were some of the most significant climate disinformation challenges you encountered? How did you navigate the unique responsibility of fact-checking for one of the largest Spanish language media networks in the world?
Well, first of all, disinformation challenges at Univision weren't that different from the ones that we find in Factchequeado, because the both of fact-checking teams are working with disinformation that targets Latinos in the US. So that means that we basically find more or less the same things. However, a frequent tactic we found at Univision is that disinformers use is when they use footage from the news anchors and apply through artificial intelligence a similar voice. And in that way, they use those videos to make people think that these anchors are selling a product, or they can do a scam through those paid advertising that the bad actors do, or they use it to spread conspiracy theories. So this is probably something we found. But regarding climate, more or less what we have found in both fact-checking team is something that you mentioned at the beginning. So a lot of things about climate denial, basically that climate change is a hoax or it doesn't exist, or conspiracy theories that say that all the sustainability efforts or programs are done to exterminate people in the world, or let's say for Agenda 2030, this is something that was that program were like the focus of many disinformers, and they said that it pursued to exterminate people, or the 15-minute cities, for instance, were aimed to confine people in a place instead of understanding that this is a proposal to find more walkable cities and to reduce commute time. So those are the kind of things. So those conspiracy theories, climate denial, also climate denialism. So very recently we just fact-checked something that is that said that electric cars creates more pollution or are dangerous. So those are kind of things that create fear and make people think that solutions or programs that helps with climate change are wrong. So,
Thank you very much. So I wanted to ask the group one question. It's open to you three to either pass or answer. But I want to ask, given the vast amount of disinformation being spread, what strategies do you think are the most effective for empowering Latina communities to identify and push back against false climate narratives? On the floor. Any takers?
I can start. I think one strategy that is really powerful is stories. When you put real people in front of cameras saying real facts, that is powerful. I can, be here and tell you, share the numbers, like 78% of Latinos are concerned about extreme weather events impacting their families. That is a fact, we know that. But if you show a Latino mom talking about how she's concerned about her kids, how she's concerned about her house, the well-being of her community, That is powerful. I think the stories are really, really powerful. And it's part of the work that we are trying to do through paid media. Put those stories out. We just released, for example, a docu-series called Tierra Mía with El Tiempo Latino. And we are trying to show that, like, the impact of extreme weather in key states like Arizona, Nevada, North Carolina, and then the impact of the clean energy transition. And I can tell you, for example, that transitioning to solar, it will decrease your energy costs, but it's different if you actually see that person in Arizona showing her bill, her electricity bill, and how it has decreased. That story has more power than anything I can say in front of a microphone. So I would say that stories.
Thank you so much.
So I can go next. I think there are 2 points that I would make here. One is that all solutions to countering disinformation, quote unquote, work. So academic studies have shown everything. Fact-checking works, media literacy works, pre-bunking that I mentioned earlier works. So the framing isn't always do more of this and less of this. It's more figure out for whom the solutions that you're trying work best for, right? So a person that believes 1 in 15 false claims may do very well with a fact check. They probably could use that, they'll share it with their family. A person that believes 14 of 15 false claims, that's not gonna be the solution that works for them, right? They might have they might need a depolarization exercise, or they might need to like make friends on the other side of the aisle or something, but the solutions all work. We need to invest more time and money into understanding the subgroups and the drivers behind engagement with disinformation. That's one thing. I think the other thing is we should just remember that the more we talk about something, the more it seems real, right? And I think disinformers do know that. It's a tactic they use, but I think the same applies for us, for people that are trying to counter. Because not every false claim deserves attention. And so actually, I think we need to do more work also in making sure that we're measuring the breakout of different claims and narratives, and that we're addressing the narratives more so even than the specific claims, because sometimes we can unintentionally be amplifying something that isn't circulating at scale yet, and people then will, like, this is not a very formal way of saying this, but like freak out about it. And the more you set the agenda with that disinformation, the more problematic it can be. And so I think a lot of our organizations are constantly working to try to identify the scale at which something is impacting our communities, and then to try to kind of get ahead of the narratives. And different orgs do that in different ways, but I really recommend you all looking at the Ben Nimmo breakout scale. It's like a 5-part breakout scale, and it allows you to kind of judge for yourself how much something is spreading.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Ana Maria, would you like to take the stage?
I can add something. So in Factchequeado, we believe one of the most effective strategies is definitely to work in pre-bunking, with inoculation. That's definitely one of the things we work on. But also, when we fact check everything we do, we follow a methodology that guides step by step what we do and how we find information. So we guide our audience, either they're reading or following anything on our social media, how we find the facts, so they can decide their own conclusion. They don't have to necessarily believe us. They can find the facts and decide. So this is a way that we help them to follow a process and to understand how they can check by themselves, not only through our lens. So this is a methodology we follow in all our content, and we also try to be very empathetic, and we have been, so for instance, in our social media, we have in our team, there are people of different ages and people of different accents, so we can be more empathetic with our audience. And we have been trying with different formats. For instance, very recently, we have one of our fact checkers is also a cook, and she's cooking a recipe while she speaks about a disinformation technique, or disinformation topic. So she's explaining this through a recipe. So this way we are trying to engage easier our audience and trying to connect more. So this is the kind of strategies we think that we have to test and continue working.
Thank you so much. So thank you all for answering my questions. But now I want to open it up to the public. I want to give you the opportunity to ask any questions that you might have. We all have a mic passing around. Yes, any takers? So this first hand over here, please.
Gracias. Hola, Francisco Alvarez. Two points. One, Juan Pablo alluded to this at the end of his remarks, this use of like divide and conquer strategies. I find where it plays out is where misinformation campaigns will take a wedge issue and they'll say, money that's going towards disaster relief is being taken away from you and being given to migrants or to trans bathrooms, right? And so, on the face, it's silly. We know it's not true, but that is out there. Trump engages in this all the time. If the panelists want to elaborate on some of those common tropes of like this divide and conquer, these wedge issues are being used to obscure the truth. The other question was about following the money, how we identified some of the major sources of this misinformation. Is it coming from oil and gas? Is it coming from misinformation mills that are also spreading misinformation in other issue areas? Thank you.
Thank you very much for your question. Any takers for the first point on the wedges?
Sure, so I can briefly comment on that. It's absolutely part of various different manipulation tactics. This like pitting of the us versus them, creating a common enemy is something that we see a lot. There are two places where we're seeing it a lot leading up to the elections in November. One is pitting migrants that have been in the United States for many decades against newcomers or new migrants or people who have come here in a way that is different from the way that you came here. I think oftentimes that gets combined with this like scarcity mindset, as you mentioned, which is that, or the injustice mindset. I had to spend 7 years going through this green card process. Why is it that this other person gets to come in and get handouts right away? So I think like, that really speaks to how people engage with information, period, right? There are a lot of real fears and anxieties. There's a lot that people are dealing with economically on a daily basis. And so I think we really have to respect that and kind of get at it from a perspective of, one, storytelling, I think 2, empathy mixed in with facts, and then 3, just bringing people together more outside of the online world, frankly. I think there are some really cool organizations doing that type of work. Also in other countries, for example, in Brazil, where I'm originally from, there's an org called Cordial Networks, and they bring together different influencers from different sides of the spectrum who cover different issues, for example, chefs or cooks, to have conversations with themselves about different wedge issues so that they can be sure they're not a part of the problem and they can bring in their audiences with them. It's a tough thing, though. It plays out in a lot of different ways. And it is not totally divorced from reality, but it does get kind of massively twisted. And it's often in calling out the tactics that you get ahead of things like that, I think, and in telling better stories about what the reality actually looks like.
I would like to add, in the universe of disinformation audience, we need, and this is really tough for me, but I came to accept it. We need to accept the fact that there is a portion of that universe that we will never convince. There is a portion that we will never move them, no matter what content, no matter what person, no matter anything. That person will never move. So we focus on the persuadable audience. So identifying that persuadable audience is the key. And through polling, through a lot of stuff, through the work, of Roberta and her team, we are able to actually identify, okay, in key states, who are the persuadable Latinos? And then figure out the way to put the message in front. So I think the key is that audience identification, because no matter how good the message is, no matter how, many cooking classes or entertaining things we put in front of them, there are some people that will just stay grounded in the disinformation.
Thank you.
I
So,
can answer the
yes,
second one.
go ahead.
Yeah. So regarding how we follow the money, so we have done a couple of stories about, and we have followed the money on about some disinformation. Of course, it's hard to do it, to be honest. But for instance, we found not specifically regarding climate, but regarding elections and regarding the fraud, misinformation, and the fraud narrative, and the communism and Kamala Harris association narrative. So, and we have found paid ads coming from America PAC, which is the PAC that is backed by Elon Musk. A lot of paid ads going through regular mail and also through Facebook and all social media. So, and YouTube and Google. So this is a story we have on our website. Also, we have a story that is, so the Department of Justice seized a number, I don't remember now, it's a huge number of websites that were paid from the Russian government to disinform Hispanic in swing states and other states such as Texas and other things, and using the fraud narrative mainly. So these are some of the things that we have found, and also some ads coming from politicians, some Republican politicians with the same kind of narrative. The fraud narrative is the most common that we found, and the communism narrative. So I don't know if that answers your question, but at least we're trying to follow the money. If you find ads and that have your attention, please send it to us so we can check who paid for that, and probably we can write a story about that.
Yes, thank you. I also really quickly want to add again about the report that I mentioned. It's called Big Oil's Campaign of Climate Denial, Disinformation, and Doublespeak. It does go into a little bit about the history of Big Oil and its disinformation campaign. So long story short is that Big Oil has known since like the 1970s, at least for decades, about its impact on climate change, on the climate. But rather than using that information for good, it's used disinformation campaigns to confuse the public. And so it does invest a little bit into these disinformation campaigns. It does research with big universities. I graduated from Princeton University, come to find out that I believe it's BP and Princeton have one of the longest standing relationship with vast amount of money, where it's investing for Princeton to do research into carbon capture and other forms of sequestration. But it does this as a format of greenwashing. So Princeton comes out reporting really good things about a new technique, and Big Oil takes that information and uses it for greenwashing. So that's something that's also starting to come to light. So again, do look into that report as well. It was something that I found very, very useful. But yes, any other questions right now? It's right here.
Hola, ¿qué tal? My name is Brian Morales. I have a question for the three of you. You all mentioned WhatsApp is used quite largely by the Latino community to keep touch with people and friends back home. And climate change, of course, does not just happen in the US. You all mentioned frontline communities that are also affected in all of Latin America. So my question is, how are your groups bringing this message to Latin American countries? And what relationships with local groups or state actors have you all developed? Thank you.
I can start. Hola, Brian. Muchas gracias por la pregunta. I would say that we are expanding our work, and one part of that expansion is international media. We, of course, Latinos, we care about our families across the ocean. We care about what is happening there. We read international media. I check TVN Nacional in Chile. So we need to be more present and we need to start talking more with international correspondents here in the US and directly with media in our countries of origin, because that message comes back. That message reaches Latinos inside the United States. So I think we are proactively starting to do that.
Yeah, on our end, so we are not in the business of crafting messaging on climate issues, and I think a lot of our partners are, and that's great, and that's why we're not doing it. But we do, so at the heart of what we do at DDIA is kind of track the cycle of information that's very borderless among Latino communities. And so we kind of know that addressing this only in a silo or only within the United States doesn't really tip the scale en masse. And so what we're doing is actually, it's narrative research, but we also do have a partnership with a company out of Brazil that developed a tool that allows us to monitor 1,300 public WhatsApp groups. And all of these groups use Spanish or Portuguese as a primary language, but they have at least 30% US-based phone numbers, like +1 numbers. We can't see people's personally identifiable information. We can't even see their full numbers, the full phone numbers, but we can see where they're based. And so we're tracking information that's cycling in these groups between US Latinos and people based in Latin America, and we're sharing it with Factchequeado, and we're sharing it with Antionieta's team, and with GreenLatinos through a monitoring report that we put out every week, which is open. If you all want to receive it, you can register on our website at ddia.org. But that's kind of what we're doing, sort of trying to help our partners understand how these cycles work and which narratives get repeated across borders, so that they then can do the work of kind of crafting and testing great messaging around specific issues like climate, and put that out into the world. We're going to be doing more of this next year, but trying to partner with a lot of organizations in different countries that are doing innovative work on this. Like Brazil is one of the best countries for climate innovation. And we're huge and we deal with this all the time. So there are some great organizations that have tried things that I'm sure would be relevant for the US context too. So we're trying to be that bridge as well.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So in our case, the way we can reach people in other places and other countries, we believe in creating community, in creating a community that works against disinformation, that targets Latinos. So since all fact-checking and organizations in Spanish and organization that works for Hispanic in the US are small, we have created a network of more than 100 partners, and we work with them. All our content is available for them to share in their communities. So we have this alliance with grassroots organizations, with media organizations, nonprofits. So, and this is a bidirectional relationship. All our content is available to them. If they are producing content, their content is also usually available to us to replicate. But also that way they help us to identify local issues that are interest of their organizations and what kind of disinformation is happening in their communities. So, and many of those organizations also have connections through Latin America, and we are also part of WhatsApp group with Latin American fact checkers, and we also share our content. So this is a way we think that we can spread the information, basically creating networks.
Thank you very much. So for the sake of time, we're still taking questions, but they're just going to be a little bit on the quicker end. Anybody, any other questions? Let's go right here in the front, please, and then we'll go others.
Hi, my name is Itlali Lopez. I am also from Brownsville, Texas, and I'm here to be representing Brownsville, representing the Valley, representing Texas Rising. I'm a student leader for Texas Rising at Texas Southmost College chapter. And one of the main concerns that I have is referring to Elon Musk, because back in 2018, he made comment saying it was about people interviewing him about how is he going to test the flights for going to Mars, and this is what he said, and this is quotations, most likely it's going to happen at our Brownsville location because we got a lot of land with nobody around, and so if it blows up, it's cool. So technically to re-sentence is that if Brownsville blows up, it doesn't matter because there's no one there, which is a big misinformation in my opinion because we're Brownsville residents. Obviously, it's a big community there. And as much as like I try to tell people like, hey, like this is false. Like I'm a Brownsville resident. I live here. At the end of the day, it feels like there's like it feels impossible to be able to inform people that there is people here and Elon Musk is lying because even though like he said this in 2018, another resident has commented that he's been out, quotations, he's been out here before. He's damn sure out to know that he's seen the village. He's out to know that it's not a ghost town. So he obviously knew that there's people in Brownsville. When he said that, he just says that there's nobody here, it's just land. And another big concern is that there's an upcoming public hearing in October 17 where SpaceX is trying to get a permit to be able to dump wastewater into the Boca Chica beach water. And obviously, for me, under Texas Rising, while I'm here, I have the Texas Rising Texas Homeless team gathering people to sign up for to make a testimony for this open public hearing. And so far, we got 20 people signed up already. But my main question is like, how can we inform more people that have never been to Brownsville about the truth? Like, for example, like how can we spread the truth and, how do you say it? Basically say like, oh, this is like big misinformation.
Well, thank you for that comment. When is the public hearing?
The
17th.
17th.
Yes, October 17, it will be, you can submit a comment online or come to Brownsville. It will be at the Brownsville Sports Park that the public hearing will be at.
I would say, and I will go back to 2020. You remember the climate movement in 2020 was still very separated. We didn't have a strategic communications work inside the climate movement. Everyone was doing their thing, and it's good, great work, but we didn't align our voices together. We started to do that, I would say, early 2020, and that work has evolved over time and is effective. So I would say my recommendation is that anyone that is talking about this issue, you need a communications strategy behind it. What are we saying? Why are we saying it? What is the main message we want people to take away after this? What is our end goal? Responding to all those questions and aligning your main talkers and stakeholders to actually deliver that message, and then push it to the media, social media, etc. Use everything you have. That is how we can make a difference in terms of having people feeling the pressure, having this, like the chief of staff of Donald Trump, I would say, is Elon Musk in terms of disinforming in chief. He's the chief of staff. He also spread a lot of disinformation. So it's risky. And a lot of people see him as an icon, as a business leader. You know, he has a lot of credibility. That's dangerous. So that would be my advice.
I would just add a really quick point. It's not specifically about this, but just to say, like, Elon Musk is a huge problem beyond climate. He's a huge problem for information integrity online, and since he bought X, we've dealt with a slew of issue areas. The only thing, if this is at all comforting, is that I would say is that I'm a member of like 4 coalitions of hundreds of civil society organizations, and all of them are working on corporate accountability and platform accountability issues, and he is at the center of a lot of the work that they're doing to push back against this. So take Antonieta's advice for the specific organizing context, but know that if you share your stories also with GreenLatinos and others, we can kind of put it in front of coalitions that are doing sort of national pushing against him and also international pushing against him. I'm from Brazil. X was banned for the last month because he's like,
I also just want to say thank you so much for that question and for the comments, because again, from Brownsville, grew up going to Boca Chica Beach, so I have also been following the issue and I feel very, very emotional about it. So it's very nice to hear that being posed here. We also barely met like yesterday, so it's very nice seeing another person from Brownsville here, but let's definitely connect afterwards, please. Another question, please, and it'll be the final question of the day. Here, friend.
Thank you. Hi, good afternoon, and thank you for this event. It's really nice. I'm Isabel Morales, and my question is, like, misinformation comes normally from social media. Your organization right now are using any strategy to debunk or to fight that misinformation?
yes.
Yes,
Could you,
absolutely.
more or less, you kind of explain, but could you just be more, have more details about it?
Yeah. So maybe Ana Maria might be a good person to speak on this, but just to quickly say, so a variety of different things. One, we coordinate monitoring. So we do social media analysis of all the major social media and then also the WhatsApp public groups that I mentioned. We share all of that monitoring that we do, which is specifically focused on Latino spaces online, which we define as being either accounts that are run by Latinos or talking to Latinos in English, Spanish, and Portuguese. So we share all of that monitoring with all of the different civil society groups and fact checkers and journalists that I mentioned earlier. We are outlining what the meta-narratives on and the most common claims associated with different issue areas are and sharing that with different stakeholders that are doing the day-to-day work to kind of correct the record. We're also experimenting with different countermeasures. So I mentioned the pre-bunking thing. We're trying to identify, for example, which trusted messengers are most effective for different types of issues, which types of framing work best for which groups. And also we're trying to study then who the uncertain people are, the people who could be persuaded to move. And I mentioned earlier, 62% of our communities are uncertain. So there's a really, like a majority of us are critical and skeptical. And so working to make sure that we're directing these interventions at the right people and that they're amplifying it beyond that. There are some like specific best practices depending on the solution. So for example, pre-bunking, the formula is usually give the person a warning about what they might see, give them a little bit of a taste of what it is, like a micro example, and then kind of correct the record or put your good messaging out there. There's also an approach called the truth sandwich, which has been proven to work really well, which is start with your proactive messaging or what you want people to remember, put in the middle of the sandwich that falsehood that you want them to like connect this with, but yeah, you don't want to amplify, and end again with the thing that you want people to remember. And I think we talk a lot to journalists about this too, is like, make sure your headline is not the disinformation, make sure that you start with the good stuff, put in the bad stuff in the middle, end with the good stuff, and don't link to bad actors' accounts, don't show pictures of the accounts. People are really tempted to do that. So there are a lot of different approaches.
I would say that what we do, we take that monitoring and then we incorporate that into our work. So what we basically do is, okay, so they are detecting this, and that, like 3 different things, for example. Then we go and test which messages are more effective to counter that disinformation. So we test that through polling. We identify the persuadable audience and then we test the messages. When we have positive results, then we put those messages into paid media, earned media, digital content. So that is the next step. like to counter that. And then we see the results, we analyze the results. Is this ad effective? Is reaching Latinos the right way, etc. So that is the way we do it. We want to expand that work, of course, and we do that bilingually. We do that in English and in Spanish right now.
So in our case, so monitoring social media and disinformation in social media is something we do every day, all the day. So because, of course, in social media, content goes viral easily and anyone can post any content. So, of course, it's a place where disinformation lives. So when we see something that is potentially, that we think that is disinformation, what we evaluate is this harmful? Can we verify this? Can we have facts to actually debunk this content? And if it is spread or not in Spanish, and if it's not spread in Spanish, is it harming the Hispanic community? So based on that, we decide what to fact check. But this is our everyday work for us. But you have to know that not only disinformation lives in social media. There are also bad actors producing a lot of websites. And this is a technique that sometimes, when they replicate several websites and websites that are looking like legitimate websites. So they do it in a way to produce scams or to spread conspiracy theories. This is like a technique that is called doppelganger. And it's like replicating something so many times. And when people see, oh, this wasn't this news outlet, and I think it's true because I saw it, but actually it's not. If you check the URL, it has something that it doesn't finish exactly or has a type or something like that. So we really have, but usually how people know about a website is through social media. But the websites are a way to back the content that is being spread through social media. So we have to be aware of all the techniques, and wherever the disinformation lives, we try to follow that. Because, for instance, the recent report that we wrote about the America Hack started with a piece of content that was a printed content that one of our fact checkers received in their mailbox. So we said, oh my God, there is something here. So this information is everywhere. I mean, if you check a magazine and then you see, oh, this magazine is trying to manipulate me in this or that, so check who's producing that. I mean, these informers are everywhere, and they're using all the communication techniques. So we have to be careful of all of that.
JP, can I just add one really, really quick thing?
Yes, please.
This is such a good point because countering disinformation is such a whack-a-mole problem. It pops up so quickly. So actually, I just wanted to stress that there's also a lot of work being done in the policy world to change the entire infrastructure and to address some of the root causes. We have slander and libel laws, for example. They need to be updated to reflect the online realities. Legal cases where the burden of proof is really hard to come up with because you can't tell whether one piece of content is the thing that led to someone getting hurt, right? But there are a lot of open source investigation researchers out there that now know how to kind of follow that information. So we're working with Congress, since we're here, a lot to help them think through laws and regulations and things that can really address the infrastructure and the drivers and not just the content.
Thank you so much. That was a great final message. Ana Maria, just so you're aware, I'm going to switch over and close us out. But thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay. So I just want to say thank you to everyone for coming out today, for engaging with us and just being present in this very important congressional briefing. I hope that you guys at least took a little bit of information. But one thing that I want to stress is that when it comes down to disinformation, it's not just about the environment. Disinformation affects every single issue topic that you can imagine, and it's a true struggle. But yes, please work with us, please contact us, and let's work together to combat this. Encourage everyone to stay informed, reshare our messages. But yes, come over. Here's my email if you want to send anything. Just want to share that this is over, but feel free to mingle. But at the very end, we need to get out by 4 o'clock. Please. Thank you so much, everyone. Have a good afternoon.
Great job.
Thank you.